live, and then I'll check my comment section on my phone. Forgot to charge my phone, so hopefully that doesn't die while I'm doing this thing. I'll have to figure out an alternative for me phone. Turn down the volume on that. Alright, so we are here aboard the RMS Titanic, and I'm just waiting to see your guys' comments. And today we'll just be kind of exploring the ship and just kind of having fun and, talking about my upcoming voyage aboard the Queen Mary 2, and then any, future plans or anything I have for, I don't know, just the channel. Of course, the comment section won't load in. That's been an ongoing issue I've had lately as well. Some reason it doesn't show me the comments. Sometimes it's just really... There we go. All right. So, hello, Ozzy. Hello, Arnaud. Hello, Evan. Hello, Carter. Five Caps Films. Good to see you all here. And Jeffrey, hello. So I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering, Alex, what'd you do for, Titanic's anniversary week that just passed? And to be honest, I didn't really do much of anything on that week. I've been incredibly busy, but some of you know that I've helped collaborate on a new tour on the Queen Mary. So I helped the ship's curator, Katerina Capaldi. She wanted to develop a tour on the Queen Mary that kind of talked about Titanic and how the two ships are alike. And so we got to collaborating on that. I shared some information about Titanic and the Queen Mary and all that kind of stuff. And so around that, she built a tour, and it's been successful so far, I think, because I've already had a few people I know go on that tour, and they said it was wonderful. They loved it. So that's really good. That's basically kind of like how I celebrated Titanic, was helping with that tour. And then afterwards, I was just kind of like, I am exhausted, Well, it wasn't just the tour thing that made me exhausted. It was also just running YouTube. But yeah, so we're here. Like one of the things that makes the two ships so similar is like these are Utley side light windows, and there are windows very similar to this on on Queen Mary, and they were also designed to crank downwards as well, just like these are. And so that's one of those things that, they shared the same manufacturer and they were the same type of windows and stuff like that. So they're just different dimensions. That's all. These ones are very square, and the ones on Queen Mary that did the rolling down thing were very rectangular, very, But yeah, I'm sure they had the same porthole manufacturer as well. That's something I didn't look into because there was already so much to research already, but I'm pretty sure they had the same porthole manufacturer. Why not? Almost all the ships at the time did. But yeah, I mean, and something I didn't even get to talk about in the video because I have no footage of it, but this is an area on Titanic. This is around second class, and this is aft on Titanic. I don't remember what deck we're on right now, but in fact, it probably says so inside of here somewhere what deck this is. C deck. Okay. So so we're aft on C deck in the second class area, and on the other side of this wall to our right, or bulkhead to our right, is the first class area, and it's separated by this semi-exterior, I guess you would call it an enclosed promenade is what you would call it. And Queen Mary had this exact same thing. And so that's one of those things I didn't even get to mention in in my notes or anything like that because there's really no way to see it on Queen Mary today. There's a little bit of the remnants left behind of it, but you can't imagine it when you're there, because when you're there, you see one large open room and it's all part of the same thing. You can't imagine that it was part of a promenade when you look at it. So it just makes it difficult to kind of give that fun fact because people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, so Arnaud asks, or he was talking about, well, yesterday he had asked me this question. The precision about the paneling he was talking about yesterday. I saw them in Chris's January trip 2024 when you got him on the Queen Mary. I saw the paneling at the time code 12010. Data precision. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know which video. Like, I know you've told me what video it is, but I can't find it. And much less go to the time code. I have an idea of what you're talking about, and I think you're right. I think that is an original piece, but I don't know for sure. I'll just be honest. Like, the area on Queen Mary where the World War II exhibit is, some things there are fake, like they've made it specifically for that exhibit, and some things are very, very real. The thing is, I don't know off the top of my head how much of it is real versus how much of it is fake. So you could be right. That could be an original piece of paneling. But at the same time, I actually don't have enough information to be able to say whether or not that it's original or it's just a replica. It is in the same area relatively. So it is imaginable that it could be. So it's not hard to imagine that you could be right because it's in the same area. So yeah. Carter says, can you make a video about the Queen Mary in movies, please? I've thought about it, but I still haven't decided on how I would do it because it is difficult because I don't have access to all the movies that were filmed on Queen Mary. I don't even have a full list of all the movies that were filmed on the Queen Mary because there are movies I still discover every month that I'm like, oh, that was filmed on the Queen Mary. I had no idea. And then on top of that, like I don't have access to those movies, so I can't screen record them in order to show people, oh, this is this part of this movie where this was filmed. Because I can't screen record it because I don't have access to all the movies. So it's one of those things where it's like I don't really know how to accomplish that goal. So that's why I haven't made a video about that yet. I really like this lounge. I wish all the lights were on because I'm sure the lounge would look really nice with all the lights on. But when you go into the center of the lounge, it's very nice and warm, and that's one of the things that I miss about incandescent light bulbs. From when I was a kid, yeah, some people had fluorescent lights when I was a kid, but most people bought incandescent because they were just so cheap back then. When I was a little kid, they were just so cheap that it was like everybody had incandescent light bulbs for everything. And incandescent light bulbs, what I miss about them is how warm they made a room feel. And I have special warm white LEDs that I have for my living room because I refuse to use those harsh white LEDs for my living room and stuff like that. So I have the warm white ones that kind of replicate an incandescent light bulb light, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. There's even with the best like manually adjustable LED lights, you just can't quite get to the same light spectrum because LEDs by nature are monochromatic. So it relies on having multiple LEDs, each with a different, even with a different light spectrum with each one in order to accomplish a multi-spectrum goal. But even then, it doesn't accomplish all the spectrums of light that an incandescent bulb does. So I miss incandescent bulbs. I really do. I'm sure they still sell them in some places, but in most of the United States, they stopped selling them, particularly in California, because they have laws against the materials they're made with. So, but it's weird to think, like, when I was a kid, if you had told me, oh, incandescent bulbs would never be a thing anymore one day, I would think that wouldn't be true. I would have said, well, there's always a use for a nice cheap light bulb, you know. But I would have never imagined incandescent bulbs would stop being used altogether. Well, maybe I should go down instead of, well, we're already up here. Why don't I just take a quick look around? Oh, yeah, we're not even at the top yet. Okay, I thought we were. We're not even at the boat deck. We're still at, gosh, I really love the clouds and the sea. Like, it looks really nice. That's one of the things I like about this demo is it looks very, very realistic. It makes me want to build the Queen Mary in Unreal, but it would take me years. I mean, imagine it took these guys years, and they had a whole group of people working on it. I'd be working on it basically by myself, and it would take me a lifetime to finish it. Probably by the halfway point or something of me getting it done, there'd probably be like an Unreal 7 or something, and I'd have to switch to that and rebuild everything all over again. So I feel like it's not even worth it if I'm the only one working on it. But man, doesn't this look like something out of a photograph? It's so wonderful. Let me get to some comments here. Would you ever, Podcast Film says, Alex, would you ever try your hands at modeling parts of Queen Mary, maybe a room or something? Yeah, I mean, like, I could model a room on the Queen Mary. That isn't so, such a hard task, basically. Um, but I feel like I wouldn't want to stop at just one room. I'd want to keep going and try to do the whole thing because so far nobody's created a realistic Queen Mary like this level of detail. Like no one's created one so far. And Titanic Honor and Glory has mentioned that, oh, maybe someday when we finish the project and Titanic is out and available for everybody, maybe we'll do Queen Mary next or something. But there's no telling, how committed they are to that because Titanic Honor and Glory has taken them years to accomplish. And I imagine that when they're done with it finally, which will still be years from now, I imagine when they're finally done with it, because I mean, geez, they've been working on just the hull, they started rebuilding the Titanic from the ground up. And right now they just released an alpha that shows kind of the steel framework of the hull. They're not even finished with all the frames of the hull yet. Not just the exterior, but I mean like the structural interior frameworks. They haven't even finished with those yet. And they've already been working on that for well over a year. I think maybe a year and a half or 2 years maybe or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's been at least a year. And they've barely gotten through all that framework. I can easily imagine that we probably wouldn't see them complete the project for another 4 to 5 years from now. And so I'm kind of like, gosh, when they're done with the Titanic, are they going to want to take on the Queen Mary? The Queen Mary's bigger than the Titanic. I don't know if they're going to want to do that. They're probably going to be tired and they're going to be like, you know what? We did what we came here to accomplish and we're done, I know I would be if I did something like that. If I built the Queen Mary, I'd be like, no more ships for me. That's it. Queen Mary. That's it. So, so that's one of those things where I'm like, I can't imagine that they'd be too serious about building the Queen Mary. So, and I know like, Oceanliner Designs has mentioned that he wants to put the Queen Mary in his new Voyage game. I forget what it's called. but it's something Voyage, Grand Voyage. But I don't know how detailed it will be. You know, will it be Titanic Honor and Glory quality detail? Or will it be like Ship Explorer quality detail? You know, because that really depends. If it ends up being closer to Ship Explorer quality detail, then it might be worth it for me to start Queen Mary in Unreal Engine. But even then, I'm still learning how to build models. Let's go in this room. This is the smoking room. I'm still learning how to build models. I haven't even learned how to map the models or apply textures. That's been something that's been very difficult for me to learn. Believe me, I have tried. And it has not been easy at all. So, so what am I trying to say? So that's why I'm kind of like hesitant to start on that, because I'm like, it would just be me building it. I'd be all alone, and it would take me forever. Just forever. But my friend Shiloh was like, you know, we got to do it. We got to do it. So I told him, I said, Shiloh, if you can learn how to use Unreal Engine 5 and you can learn how to build stuff in Blender, I said, you know, it would go faster if it was me and Shiloh working on it. But it would still take us years. I mean, you know. And right now, I'm occupied with Disneyland Railroad Simulator. I'm building all of Disneyland. And it's going through here. I'm building all of Disneyland, hundreds of buildings, you know, over the course of several different decades. So we have different maps over different decades. And I'll get a lot of experience from that. It'll teach me how to build a lot of stuff just by doing that alone. But it's definitely not going to be easy. This is the second class dining room. I still think in certain ways this dining room is more beautiful than the first class dining room. Yeah, there's just something about it. Let's get to some more comments. Firecast Film says, also, I'm guessing the shorter the length of the ocean liner, the more extreme the shear is. I don't know. I think so. I think shorter ocean liners have more extreme shear, but or maybe it just gets to because when you get to the bow of Queen Mary, the shear is at its steepest. It's not even that steep at the stern of the ship as it is at the bow. The bow is like extreme. It feels like you can really feel like you're walking uphill when you're at the bow. And I imagine that on a smaller ocean liner, it's not necessarily worse than that. It's just that it gets to that level of steepness much sooner because it's a shorter length. But that's pure speculation on my part because I can't say that I'm absolutely certain of that, of my opinion on that. Because I haven't been on enough ocean liners with shear. So, but yeah, that's another thing too I was talking about yesterday when I was live streaming was it would be difficult to replicate Queen Mary's shear. Just the sheer complexity of it. Get it? Sheer. Anyway, yeah, so it would be difficult to replicate Queen Mary's sheer. Not impossible, you know, because, you know, I don't like to say everything's impossible, but it would be very difficult. And that's one of those things where I'm kind of like, I don't know if I if I can do that, you know, just with how much work that is. But I would like to have Queen Mary in Unreal Engine. I mean, can you imagine the level of detail and all the stuff that you get to see that nobody's seen in decades? I mean, we would build, you know, me and Shiloh, we would build the Queen Mary as it looked in 1936. And can you imagine what that was like? I mean, geez, we only have pictures of these rooms, but to see them in 3 dimensions, just like this, that's what makes Titanic Honor and Glory so interesting. Is you get to see Titanic as it really looked, and as detailed as these guys can possibly make it, and as accurate as these guys can possibly make it. I mean, yeah, there's been Titanic video games, but they were never so dedicated to accuracy that, you know, it's created controversy the way it has with Titanic Honor and Glory. They're so dedicated to accuracy that it's slowed down their project at times, and that's created controversy at times. But of course, there's other things too, but I'm not going to get into that because, frankly, I don't know enough about those situations to really render an opinion. But what I will say, though, is that for sure the level of quality and detail has slowed their project down. And I can see how that would be upsetting to people who've waited so long. There's people who've waited much longer than I have to see the finalized Titanic come to fruition. But yeah, so can I go down another level? I keep forgetting it. No, they have the rope up. Okay. But we are at E deck, so we can go over to third class. Arnaud. Yeah. Well, it's just the reason why I say that the paneling could be fake is because, like, there's paneling on Sun Deck that I was like, oh wow, that I didn't know that these original pillars existed. And then like Shiloh was like, actually, Alex, those are not real wood. Those are they're made of rubber. So I was like, I didn't know that. So that's one of those things where sometimes they can create really accurate replicas, and it's hard to tell unless you're right up there, and you know. So here's an area I rarely ever go anymore, so I'm gonna take you guys over here. This is where all the extra third class and second class cabins are. You know, I could peek down these hallways, but there's no open doors here, so they just kind of look like that. They just kind of go off towards a porthole. I like this. This is the one of the aft cargo holds. Let me get Arnaud about the main mast. Yeah, that's true. Very good. No way. I just finished the pilgrimage, or just finished my pilgrimage. I'm assuming Tyler's talking about the Queen Mary. Arnaud says, if I learn how to use Blender and UE5 in the future, I would try to help you with the project. But this time I need to learn how to install them and try to model. Ozzy says, does the Queen Mary have a car at the bow? No, but actually there used to be. I have photographs of, you know, in the 1970s through to like 1980, there was a car on the bow of Queen Mary, and that was Queen Mary's personal limousine. It was her personal limousine, and it was on display there, which is really cool. So, so that's one of those interesting things that, and that, you know, and the limousine was there just kind of baking in the sunlight every single day until they finally removed it. And I think it's in a car museum somewhere. It's been restored, thankfully. But can you imagine that? Queen Mary's personal limousine was aboard the RMS Queen Mary for almost a decade. I think it was 9 years. Here's one of the steward's pantries for serving the passengers. Fivecaps Film says, even in this demo, the shear in the area with the spiral staircase is kind of extreme. It certainly is. Excuse me. I just feel a little bit tired. It's weird because I'm drinking this coffee, but for some reason, sometimes, like, as I'm drinking coffee, it actually makes me more tired. Carter Asher says, can you recreate photos of Father Brown on Titanic? I wish I could, but I actually don't have those photos memorized, so I actually wouldn't know how to recreate them. I don't even remember, like, what all the photos were either. I'm actually not as knowledgeable about Titanic as a lot of people think. I always tell people when I do these Titanic live streams that I'm really more of a Queen Mary historian. I often do a lot in these videos. I often do a lot of comparison between Titanic and Queen Mary because what is that? Oh, I thought there was like secret writing carved into it. Yeah, I often do a lot of comparisons with Queen Mary because that's how I understand ocean liners is like, I know how Queen Mary works, and so I go, oh, that looks like this on the Queen Mary. That must be the same thing, but just an earlier version. That's kind of what I do. I don't really know as much about Titanic. And so even with like the Father Brown photographs, like I know what they are. I've heard of them, and I've of course seen a few of them, but I don't remember what exact photos they were or how they were positioned and stuff like that. So, oh, you can see the individual paintbrush strokes on the wall. That's something. I knew there was a texture on the wall, but I didn't realize that they had the actual paintbrush strokes as a texture. That's really cool. That's really cool. From a distance, you can see the texture. You're just like, oh, that's a texture. It looks nice, But I didn't actually know they had the paintbrush strokes as a texture. That's really cool. And then I think, oh yeah, right. We're not in the area that I thought I was. Can I go down further? I forget. Oh, now we're getting lag. Why? Why are we getting lag? There's something about those stairs that when I try to go there, there's lag. See, and this is one of those things I look forward to when they finish the finalized Titanic Honor and Glory game. Is there's areas like this that are chained off so we can't go down there and stuff, but I want to be able to wander Titanic without any restriction, Like, I'd like to just see Titanic. So that's one of those things that I'm looking forward to when they finish Titanic Honor and Glory. Let's go up. Is this brushstrokes too? No, this is steel texture. But what I like about this is that there's a lot of high quality textures. When you get up real close, it doesn't. The models don't really lose their quality. Yeah, I mean, you get closer to it, and there's things that you notice, but I mean, it's still really high quality. I like when models are like that. I don't like when you're in a game and you get up close to a model and it just falls apart because it just looks so CGI or whatever you call it, And that's one of the things with the Disneyland Railroad Simulator. We're putting so much detail into it because we want to make sure that everything looks high quality. When you walk up to an object, it will be high quality. You won't feel too much like you're in a video game. You can help, it'll help immerse yourself into the world better when the when everything has a high quality texture and all that kind of stuff. This is the lounge for third class. And this is one of those rooms that looks so much like SS Nomadic, you know. When you go inside SS Nomadic, there's an area, a waiting seating area for, you know, because it's a tender. So it's designed so people can wait until they board Titanic or Olympic or Britannic or Queen Mary, because Nomadic served Queen Mary as well. But there's a room that looks just like this on SS Nomadic. It's really cool. Okay, let's see. Five Cast Film says Starbucks. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, like, because I work all day every day on the computer. Weekends, I usually take weekends off. And then I work on the Disneyland Railroad Simulator on weekends. This week's been a particularly tough week because there was a video I wanted to do this week, but there wasn't enough time to do it. There would have been no way I could have had the video finished. You know, really, when it comes to these documentaries that I make, I'm most efficient at them when I produce one documentary a month. However, the problem is that one documentary a month is not enough to sustain the channel. It needs at least 2 popular documentaries posted every single month. Problem is, not all my documentaries are successful. Some of them just don't attract any attention. People aren't interested in the subject. So when that happens, I have to create more. Sometimes there have been times where I've posted a documentary every week, and can you imagine the amount of work that goes into that? I mean, it means when that happens, when some of my work doesn't do too well and I have to make up for it by doing more work, it means that sometimes I don't even leave this chair. I mean, there are days where I'm stuck at this chair all day long. And granted, the crux of it is that I like what I do. Making documentaries is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. Probably aside from, you know, assisting with stuff at the Queen Mary. I really love doing that. It gives me great happiness doing that. But as wonderful as it can be to make documentaries and have this life, it's still difficult. There's still a lot of difficulties with it. Because when things don't do well, you have to work even harder. And then as a result, sometimes I don't even leave this chair for days and days at a time. And that can really get to your head, you know. It can really mess with you because, you know, like, I want to have free time to go places and do things. And why is that popping up? Is that normal? That doesn't happen. These are bollards. That doesn't happen with bollards, does it? That's really weird. But anyway, yeah. You know, it'd be nice to have time every week to leave the house and get some fresh air, but lately with YouTube, it's been getting to the point where, like, people are losing their attention spans. And as a result, that means that, you know, I have to work harder to create more interesting content for people to watch. Because if they click away, then that doesn't bode well for the channel. So this is a great view. Get to see all of the rear of the superstructure And again, looks like a photograph. It looks so real. Okay, let's see. Arnaud says the floor in third class looks like the color floor of Burma Road on Queen Mary, right? I don't remember. Let me go down. We're still in third class, so it shouldn't take me too long to get there. Just need to... I imagine this floor is probably the same as what it is on the deck below. It's hard to see in this daylight, but it looks similar. Let's go down one more level just in case. Wait, come on. Around the staircase, not over it. Maybe if I'm away from the daylight, I can see it better. No. Okay. Yeah, you know, I would say, yeah, this is similar to the stuff that was in, that was on Burma Road on Queen Mary. Because what was on Burma Road was a type of pourable flooring called, it starts with a V. Well, you know what? This is an opportunity to show you something I can do. Let me... I'm gonna make this the stream go blank for a second while I find what I'm looking for. Oh, I have my Disneyland Railroad screen underneath it. Let me just look at something online real quick, and then I'll do that. Okay. Then I'll bring you guys back in. So we're looking at my website, RMSQM Wiki. So it's an online free Queen Mary encyclopedia. Doesn't cost you anything. And we can actually find out some information about that. So like what Arnaud was asking was, is the red floors in Titanic's third class the same thing as Queen Mary's Burma Road floors? And we can actually find Burma Road. So if we go to the decks page and we scroll down to, what was it on? R deck? No, C deck. So we go to C deck, we click on that, and then we can look at this summary here. I'm sure we got here we go, working alleyway, Burma Road. Click on that. And in fact, actually, I think the thing I'm looking for isn't even on this page. But I mean, but this is Burma Road. So in case you're wondering. So it had these floors. And actually, I know exactly where to find the thing I'm looking for. It would be under materials. Yeah, materials. So let's go. We can use the search engine. So the search engine's at the top. And I happen to know what page I'm looking for. So Miracle Materials. And it takes us to that page. We're on Miracle Materials. Vici deck covering. That's what I was looking for. So, so there we go. So little information is available about Vici deck covering other than it is a composite flooring laid directly on the steel decks of crew quarters, storage, and passages, E, F, and G decks. It was made by Vici Company Limited of Glasgow and laid by Newell's Insulation Company of the Turner and Newell Limited Company. But the Vici decks, I think, were red. I don't think there's any other flooring. No. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so I imagine that what was on Titanic was similar to the Vici deck flooring. But as you can see, this is a little plug for my website. It's rmsqmwiki.org, and it tells you a multitude of information about the Queen Mary. I mean, you can learn everything, and there's pictures to go along with it. The pictures are high quality. You click on them, and you get like a medium size, and you can click on it and get full size and get fully detailed images of the Queen Mary and stuff like that. So there's some really cool stuff here. One of my favorite pages is actually about the lifeboats on Queen Mary. They're located on Sports Deck, and let's see, lifeboats and davits. And then there's a separate page. You can see the link here, or it says click here for the thing. It takes you to the lifeboats page, and there is, see, there's a Titanic's lifeboats. You can learn a lot about the lifeboats on Queen Mary, how they were built and manufactured and stuff. Again, high quality images everywhere for all this stuff. You just simply have to click on them. But yeah, you know, it is a really cool website. And if you love just learning about the little tiny details of ocean liners, particularly Queen Mary, there's so much you can see on this website. I mean, there is days and days worth of information for you guys. So yeah, just a little plug for that. Let's go back to the game. So yeah, I think it's the same flooring. How do I get out of here? Oh, just got to turn around. You can learn about linoleum too. These are linoleum floors. You can learn about how linoleum was made on the Queen Mary. You just got to look through the search engine on my website, and it'll usually point you out in the right direction. Just read the directions, and directly you'll be directed in the right direction. Actually, where should we, let's go back to Burma Road. We'll go to the engine rooms. That's kind of fun. I like going to the engine rooms. Yeah. No, not Vellum, Vici. Yeah. Let's read other comments, although that comment probably was posted before I searched up Vici. But, let's see. The floor in third class looks like, oh, right, I already read that. So silly. I was like rereading a comment. Cunard and White have opposite colors. Their crew area, Cunard used green and blue. Well, for the walls, there's it's not green and blue. It's seafoam green, which is a combination of green and blue, but it's not two different. It's not like green and then blue. For Queen Mary's like crew areas, it's often a cream color on the top, and then right halfway through the hallway, the bulkheads of the hallway, it goes down to seafoam green, and then the floors are usually red. So it's not that they have like green or blue floors or whatever, or even green and blue walls. It's seafoam green and cream color, and the floors are red. Evan asks, "Hi Alex, what's your opinion on the amphitheater going up at the Queen Mary?" I'm okay with it. It's not, it's not right next to the ship, which is a good thing. It's it's a little bit of a distance away. I mean, yes, you'll hear the concerts on the ship. When you're on the ship, you'll hear the concerts going. But as far as I know, the concerts won't be going until like 2 a.m. I think the latest they'll be is midnight. And then after that, it'll go quiet. 'Cause they have to respect a certain quiet time. So I'm sure there will be a quiet time. But also, that amphitheater will earn money for the Queen Mary. So it's not like it's just there for no reason. That amphitheater, a portion of the profits they make for all the shows that they have at the amphitheater will go towards Queen Mary's restoration. So I'm actually in support of the amphitheater for that reason, because the Queen Mary is admittedly very expensive to maintain. Um, it's so expensive that, you know, yeah, just the stuff on the ship that earns its keep, it'll turn a profit, but it'll turn a very small profit because the expenses to keep the ship going is just so expensive. So to have a little bit of help with that, like with the amphitheater will provide just a smidge more money every year. And that'll really help projects to go along. In fact, one of the coolest projects that's coming back is the first phase of Queen Mary's Long Gallery restoration. So the Long Gallery has not been seen on Queen Mary since the ship opened as a hotel in 1972. They sectioned off parts of the Long Gallery to turn it into like meeting room spaces and stuff. And all this time they've been meeting room spaces. But so far, the Queen Mary Hotel this year, because I spoke to the managing director, Steve Koloka, earlier this year, back in January. I did an interview with him if you guys want to see that. It's on the Queen's Cross podcast. But he talked about bringing back the Long Gallery, and it's actually going to be, the first phase is going to be unveiled this May. So I would say 1/3 of the Long Gallery will be unveiled this May. You'll be able to see it. And I believe the elevator in the first class elevator in that area, which is an elevator that hasn't run since 1967, has been restored. I believe it's been restored because he told me that that's what they planned to do, was restore it so people can take the elevator up to Veranda Grill. It just so happens that they also, the same day that they're unveiling the Long Gallery, it just so happens they're also doing a special event at Veranda Grill, which makes me think he got it done. He got the elevator restored. So, and it just so happens I'm going to be there that day. I didn't know they were going to unveil all that stuff on that particular day of the month, but it turns out I will be there. So I'm going to try to get footage of it. And, you know, again, an elevator that hasn't run since 1967, an original Queen Mary elevator. And so for the first time, you know, since the 1980s, the Queen Mary will have more than just 2 original elevators. Because when the Queen Mary opened as a hotel, she had 4 original elevators still running. The other 2 that you probably aren't aware of are the starboard side elevators. So there's 2 on port side that are currently running today, and they're the only ones running today. But in the 1970s, they had the starboard side elevators still running. But then when those needed maintenance, they just stopped using them. And over the decades, they kind of just kept the other 2 still running. So up until now, there's only been 2 original Queen Mary elevators still in operation for visitors. And now there'll be a 3rd one, finally, over by the Long Gallery. A 3rd elevator. I'm just ecstatic about that. I mean, I know some people will be like, it's just an elevator, Alex, but it's a part of history that most people were just ready to just say, you know, it's gone forever, you know, because I mean, even though it's still there, you know, it's not like it was gutted out or anything, but it was gone forever in the sense that nobody thought that anybody would ever try to restore it. But as it turns out, you know, the current management at the Queen Mary, they're very dedicated to the restoration of the ship. And that's why I know, like, some people are like, Alex, you're too supportive of the current management, you know, like, we don't really know what they're like. And I'm like, no, I've met them, you know, like, I can tell good people when I meet them, usually. I've been wrong a few times in my life, just a few times. But for the most part, when I meet people, I can usually tell right from the first handshake. I can tell if they're good, genuine people. And the people I've met at the Queen Mary, the management, I've met many members of management, and then again, including Steve Koloka, the top guy at the Queen Mary. I've met them all, and they are genuine people who really, really care about the ship. And they really want to see more and more and more of the Queen Mary restored, and because they want to see it too. You know, it's not just about profits. It's that they want to see the ship restored more because they can show it off to people. They're very proud of the Queen Mary, you know? And I love that about them. I'm like, dude, these guys, you know, they really love what they're doing, you know, and it's great to see people have pride in the work that they do, you know. So many people nowadays have jobs that they can't say that they're proud of, you know, which is sad because I feel like people should be able to have jobs that they're proud of, you know. People should be able to go home and say I did something, you know. And the people at the Queen Mary, a lot of them feel that, you know, that they have a good purpose there, that they do something that is worthwhile, and I'm glad they feel that way. I'm glad they feel that way. So, so when I see that whenever they accomplish a goal like opening the long gallery, again, it's only a third of the long gallery so far, but they plan to restore the rest of it. They plan to keep going and build out the full long gallery as it used to be in 1936. Um, and it's great to see the first phase of that happening. You know, again, it's another area that, you know, we don't usually get to see. So I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited. The fact that I'll be there that day when I didn't even know it was going to happen, I was like, it was like Christmas morning learning that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so cool. So, you know, I will say, I was talking in a in the Queen's Cross podcast. We were talking to one of the former tour guides of the Queen Mary, Craig, and even he was saying, you know, I actually prefer Titanic's engines because you can actually see the reciprocation motion. You can see the work happening, you know, all the machines moving and stuff. I got to agree. You know, I love Queen Mary's engines because of how fast they are, but Titanic's engines are really cool. I mean, just look at all this machinery and stuff and all of it moving like clockwork. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I love reciprocating engines. It's too bad that reciprocating engines, they have limits. You know, when they get so big like this, they can only go so fast before it's, you know, trying to get them to go any faster is just not efficient at all. And that's kind of where they hit a snag point. Even with Armis Mauritania, Cunard, when they were building Mauritania, they were thinking about a reciprocating engine. They said, "Look, we want to use a reciprocating engine. It's tried and true. People know how it works. You know, it's at this point a traditional type of engine for a steamship." But the problem was that they calculated with the size of Mauritania, the size of the engines they would need, and the size of the engines they would have needed were roughly the size of Titanic's engines, and then those engines, imagine these engines, but needing to go, you know, several times faster than what they're capable of, just in order to make the Mauritania go super fast through the water. And they looked at it and they were like, you know, it's really not possible. If we tried to run engines that big at that speed, they would literally rip themselves apart. And that's the problem with reciprocating engines. The bigger they get, the more restricted they are on their speed, because if you force them to go super fast, at some point they will pull themselves apart. So that's why they had to switch to what was then considered a more experimental type of engine, steam turbines. And that's when they chose Parsons turbines for Lusitania and Mauritania, because they were the only type of engine that could go fast enough to make Mauritania and Lusitania win the blue ribband. So, but yeah, nevertheless, it's really cool to see these reciprocating engines. And, you know, Titanic went a respectable speed for you know, 1912. I think Titanic's maximum speed was 24 knots. You know, 24 knots is a decent speed for that time frame. So that, you know, that was it wasn't the fastest, but that's a decent speed, you know. Um my nose keeps wanting to clog. It's not cuz it's not allergies or anything. I don't know what it is. But yeah. So, let's see. Just reading through comments to see if I need to respond to any. Carter says, I try to find Molly Brown's cabin in the wreck in VR game. Oh, in the wreck, yeah. I imagine that would be difficult, unless you really know where you're going. Lido Silo. Brian says, I've just been looking at Titanic, the Ship Magnificent, Volume 2, and a quick search of those decks calls the red flooring of the third-class cabins Lido Silo. Huh. And he asks, is it similar to Vici? Excuse me. Maybe that is allergies, because I just sneezed, so... Is Lido Silo similar to Vici? I actually don't know, because I don't even know what Vici is really made of. Because even as you saw on my website, there's such limited information about Vici that I actually don't really know what it's made of. Like with linoleum, I know exactly what it's made of. It's usually linseed oil mixed with sawdust, and it's spread over a canvas or burlap backing. But Vici is a pourable liquid that they pour on the floors, and it sort of sets up. It's kind of like when you have epoxy floors, you know, in your garage or workshop or something. They often put epoxy floors. And Vici is similar to that. It's just not made of epoxy resin. But Lido Silo. And I'm trying to think by the name because, you know, with linoleum, you can kind of tell what it is. Lino in linoleum is actually a shortened version of linseed oil. So lin, liam. But Lido Silo. I don't think I've heard of that before. So that would be interesting to research. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, no, this is Titanic's dining room for third class. And the thing is, there are some things about Titanic that I don't like, and this is one of them. You know, there are pictures of Mauritania's third class dining room, and the whole thing is paneled with wood. It's beautiful, beautiful wood. I think in Mauritania it was kept a wood grain color. I think in Lusitania it was painted white. But the whole thing was paneled. Even the columns, I think, were covered in a wood paneling, and they were carved, you know, Greco-Roman-ish kind of columns. But on Titanic, it was just left bare steel. And that's something that I'm not a big fan of. So I kind of think, at least... What was that? No idea. There was a really loud noise coming from outside. I think on Titanic... I don't know. It's just too industrial for my taste. Just too industrial. Alright, back up to... what's it called? To Scotland Road. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I was like, wait, where did I go down the stairs at? And I was like, oh, it's right here. I like the details with the fire hoses and stuff out in the open. And then this is one of those areas in the demo that is actually includes shear. It's easier to tell when you're at the back of the hallway. Well, yeah, it's difficult to tell, but you can kind of see that there is shear, especially when you look at the doorknobs and how they kind of curve downwards towards the middle of the hallway and then curve back up again towards the front of the hallway. They've included shear here. And I'm sure this was no easy task. I think somebody said that if I click the right button, double click or something. No. Is it triple click? 1, 2, 3? No. There's a button you can click on the mouse that returns you back to the regular view you had. See, because now I don't remember what field of view I was using. It must be allergies. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, because right now, because I live in Oregon, so we have lots of trees and stuff. And at this time of year, all this yellow pollen is coming in through the doors and windows. I mean, it looks like yellow dust. And it must be making my nose get clogged and making me sneeze. I have allergy pills somewhere. I'll have to fish them out because I haven't used them since last year, so I haven't needed them. I don't always recall where they are. Here's one of the stewards. What do you call it? The stewards' dormitories. And Queen Mary had a few dormitories like this, but were they for stewards or were they for... Pretty sure they were for firemen. Off the top of my head, I can't remember very well. I'm sure I've got it well documented on the website, but off the top of my head, I can't remember things. Let's get back to some questions here. Yeah, Five Caps Film says it's crazy that it's already going to be May. I feel like the year just started. Same here. It's about to be May. It just doesn't feel like it. Like it feels like it's still the beginning of the year. Which is also crazy to think because we're almost towards the halfway point of the year. And then that means once you reach the halfway point, just another 6 months till Christmas again. It's like, didn't we just have Christmas? So, Mango says, been wondering, when the Queen Mary 2 eventually retires, will she be preserved as a hotel like the original RMS Queen Mary? Or is she more likely to be scrapped? I really hope she's saved. You know, I hope that the Queen Mary 2 is saved because I imagine that the Queen Mary 2 would make a much, let's just say, a much less controversial ocean liner hotel than Queen Mary or Queen Elizabeth could. Because, like with Queen Mary, for instance, I think Queen Mary, the original, makes an excellent hotel. Because it doesn't have any of the modern amenities, you know? Like, yeah, people complain about things like, oh, well, there's not enough electrical outlets for plugging in my phone and my laptop and yada, yada, yada. But the great thing about the original Queen Mary as a hotel is that it's like, it gives you the ability to step back in time and pretend like you're back in time. You know, all those things that are missing from the Queen Mary, as some people might use the word missing, are things that allow you to drop what you're doing and the life that you have right now and just pretend like you're in a different world, a different time. That's what I love about Queen Mary, and I think she excels at being that kind of hotel very well. But the controversy of it is that some people think that the Queen Mary is not worth the price because they go, well, she doesn't have enough outlets. She doesn't have, like, she has, in my opinion, decent Wi-Fi, but because the ship is made of steel, it is difficult to get Wi-Fi in every area of the ship. It's very difficult because the ship is made of really thick steel that prohibits Wi-Fi from traveling through walls. So there's things like that. Then there's issues where, dead end. And then there's issues where, you know, the Queen Mary has a lot of old plumbing for the bathrooms. It has issues with air conditioning and heating and stuff like that because, you know, a lot of those original heaters and air conditioners are not functional, so they have to use alternatives that they've installed throughout the years, and those alternatives don't function as efficiently as the original did in the 1930s. Stuff like that, you know, there's a lot of controversies because the ship is so old. Um, but I think it's only controversial to people who don't understand what, you know, living on an ocean liner for a week was really like. You know, people go to the Queen Mary and they expect it to be super modern. And I don't understand that mindset. Why would you go to the Queen Mary expecting a modern experience? You know, she's a 1930s ocean liner. You should be going there because you want to experience the 1930s or the 1960s, whatever. So, you know, but there are so many people who want to sleep aboard an authentic ocean liner, but want a modern experience. And I think Queen Mary 2 would serve that purpose very well. I think a lot of people would love to spend a night aboard the Queen Mary 2, and it'll be a lot closer to what they expect out of a modern ocean liner experience. And so I hope it is saved. So, yeah, so I hope it's saved and they're able to do more with it. However, I can't say with any certainty that it will be saved. And the reason why is because the fact of the matter is most ocean liners end up in the scrapyard. That's just how it is. I mean, it's a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle that the original Queen Mary didn't end up scrapped. It's a miracle. And I think some people take that for granted. They go, oh, well, how come the Queen Mary ended up, you know, surviving, but the SS United States did it and stuff like that? And I'm like, don't pit the ships against each other. It's a miracle when one of them survives. A pure miracle. It's not like the United States was like, oh, we like British ships more than US ships. That's not it at all. It's just that at the time, you know, the city of Long Beach had the ability to purchase the Queen Mary. SS United States was not for sale at the time, by the way, so it's not like they had a choice. They had the option to purchase the Queen. I keep forgetting this is down here. They had the option to purchase the Queen Mary. They took it, and it was just blind luck that so many things lined up for them to be able to do that. And again, can't stress enough, it is a miracle that the Queen Mary is still around. So, these should be bags of dirty linen, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So that's one of those things where I'm like, you know, I wish people wouldn't pit the Queen Mary against the SS United States because it's really not fair, you know. I think people should just be happy that the Queen Mary just does exist, you know, like, but they some people can't. There's some people are like, no, we need to destroy the Queen Mary and bring the SS United States to Long Beach. And it's like, why? You know? And in my opinion, I'm not saying this is everyone's opinion, but in my opinion, the Queen Mary did a lot more for this country, the United States, than the ship SS United States did. The ship SS United States, yes, was built by Americans, yes, won a unofficial race, you know, for the Blue Riband. Again, it wasn't an official race. They didn't get a trophy for that. And no, the Hales Trophy is not officially a Blue Riband trophy, because the Blue Riband is a title, not a trophy. And yes, SS United States did that, but the Queen Mary was the one that served more American passengers than any other, you know, country of passengers, you know, any other nationality of passengers. I passed the first class area. And the Queen Mary also carried all of our American troops to war and back. You know, the Queen Mary served so many different purposes during the war. all for, here we go, all for the United States. It did more for the United States than SS United States did. And even in retirement, the Queen Mary continues to educate and inspire Americans all over the country and all over the world, because there are Americans living abroad. Um, and it's helped to bring in a lot of tourism money for the county of Los Angeles. They count something like every year 200 million, $209 million in tourism money comes in because it can be attributed to the Queen Mary. So it's really interesting, because people come to the Queen Mary and they want to spend time in LA and Orange County. While they're at the Queen Mary, they might visit Disneyland, they might visit Hollywood, they might visit, the Getty Museum, whatever. They spend most of their time off of the ship, but they're there because of the ship. And as a result, the Queen Mary earns the county of Los Angeles $209 million every year in tourism revenue, even though the majority of that money is not spent on the Queen Mary, it's spent because of the Queen Mary. And so it's things like that where I'm like, the Queen Mary has done more for the country than the SS United States. I love the SS United States as a respectable ship. I love the SS United States for its design and the fact that it was made here in the US. But when I really look at the value, the worth of both ships, I don't see the purpose in scrapping the Queen Mary to save the SS United States. I think that kind of that kind of suggestion is just pure Queen Mary hate, I think. And I don't like that. One of the dressing booths. So. Arnaud says, I hope that the Queen Mary Hotel can restore every passenger elevator, except the third class one yet. It'd be nice if they could restore every first class elevator, or every passenger elevator. That'd be really cool, but I don't see that happening. Five Caps Film says, I noticed that with Titanic funnels, they get taller as you go to the stern, but for Queen Mary, they do seem to get shorter. I could be wrong. With Queen Mary, the funnels do get shorter as they go to the stern. And in fact, the rake, the tilt of each funnel becomes more extreme with each one. So the first one is a bit more upright than the second one, and the second one's a bit more upright than the third one. And the reason why is because by the time Queen Mary came around, they understood the aerodynamics of how smoke is lifted away from a ship. And so they were able to better design Queen Mary's funnels to lift smoke away from the passenger decks. But with Titanic, the reason why the funnels get taller the further back they go is actually because of the shear of the ship, as well as a combination of what's on the top decks of the ship. But as the forward funnel of Titanic, because I'm looking at my model right now, I have a model of Titanic. The forward funnel is further up to the bow than the others, and as a result, the ship is tilted upwards. So naturally, the funnel, in order to be at the same height as the others, has to be shorter. And as you go to the rear of the ship, to the last funnel is at an area where the shear is pretty flat with the ocean. And so as a result, that one tends to be taller just to be up to the same height as the first funnel. So that's why Titanic's funnels seem to get bigger as they go further back, is because actually they're trying to maintain the same height level, but the ship's shear is tilted upwards. So, yeah. And then of course, again, there's stuff on the top decks of the ship. There's what do they call those? There's a word for the types of structures that are surrounding the funnels of a ship, the boxy structures. I forget what they're called, but those things tend to get taller towards the bow. Let's go to the swimming pool. Okay. In a previous comment above in the chat, I talk about Burma Road picture on your wiki, and in fact, the picture of your wiki has been taken in front of the forward engine hatch entrance on Burma Road. Yep, I know. This would be so good with historically accurate NPCs walking around. They're gonna have that, yeah. In the new Titanic Honor, because this isn't the final game. This is just the demo. In the final game, there will be historically accurate NPCs walking around the ship. They've said so. Let's see here. Mr. Golden V, yes, The Goonies was filmed here in Oregon. It was filmed in the town of Astoria, which I've been to Astoria. It's a very beautiful town. Which Astoria is named after, not, I don't want to say John Jacob Astor. I think it was named after his father. So, like, you know, John Jacob Astor, he was aboard the Titanic, but I think it was his father who is the reason why the city of Astoria was named Astoria. And actually, I mean, technically, Astoria is named after, I mean, the hotel, because Astor opened the Astor Hotel in Astoria, and I think they named the town Astoria because they were so proud of the hotel and, of course, of having Astor's name on it. And I think Astor had several hotels, one of them in New York and stuff like that. So, and I think it was his son, John Jacob Astor, who was the one that was aboard Titanic. So I hope I have that right. Unless it was him himself, but I don't think it was the original Astor who was on the Titanic. Pretty sure it was his son. So yeah, interesting little loop there. Carter says, if Titanic Honor and Glory will make Lusitania game, or are you going to play it? If Titanic Honor and Glory will make the Lusitania, they're not making the Lusitania game. Supposedly, Tom Linsky is making the Lusitania game, but I haven't heard any news on that in years. But yes, if somebody made Lusitania into something explorable like I'm doing right now, yeah, of course, I would definitely explore it. I mean, heck, you know, I bought the Ship Explorer when that came out. I was very disappointed with it, but I bought the Ship Explorer when it came out, and I explored that on the live stream. So, yeah, I'll explore any of the ocean liner ships on this channel just for fun, because I think it's fun. I think ultimately it's really fun. Let's go up to the next level. Gets so laggy around this level because there's so many details. There we are. So, let's see. Queen Mary had both fireman bunks and steward dorms in the bow. The archives today, it goes to the baggage launch area on the stern above the steering gear room on D deck to R deck. Pig and whistle. Yep. I feel like RMS Queen Mary should have been. Why did I read Queen Mary? It says Olympic. I feel that RMS Olympic should have been preserved. It should have. But that's also one of those things where it's like, you know, people have asked me many times over the years, like, why didn't they save the Olympic? You know, there were people who wanted to turn it into a hotel. And the reason why is because at the time, ocean liners were everywhere. You know, there was no there was no sense of nostalgia towards an ocean liner back then the way that there is today, because they existed back then, tons and tons of them. There was nothing but ocean liners crisscrossing the world. So when Olympic retired, uh, people weren't thinking of preserving. They were thinking of, oh, this thing's old and antiquated. How can we replace it? You know, like what's the next thing? What's coming out now? It's the same reason why, you know, like for the most part, like I mean, you don't really hear too many people talking about, you know, Lamborghini models from the 1990s or the early 2000s. Most people are always looking towards the next Lamborghini model, the newest, flashiest one or whatever. And and that's kind of why. It's because like there's a certain point where something is too near the recent history that nobody cares about it. It's when something ages past a certain amount that people start to become aware of its importance, and that's usually how things are. I mean, you know, like you think about it, and you look at like a house, for instance, and when you see a house, even built in, you know, the 1970s, right? You look at it and you're like, okay, how can I improve this house to make it look more modern? But for the most part, if you look at a house from, you know, the 1920s or even the 1900s or the 1880s, you look at those houses, and most of the people that buy those houses want to make them look like they used to. They look at ways to preserve, not to change. Although, of course, there are people who do take really old houses and then try to modernize them, which is, I think, blasphemy. um, but nevertheless, you know, it's always been the case where something from the more recent past really isn't appreciated until it becomes a rarity. And that's the same thing with ocean liners. And so for Olympic, yeah, there were people who wanted to turn it into a hotel, but they were really just the few people who could see that kind of thing being, uh, you know, useful. Most people were just like, why bother? There's going to be more better ocean liners coming out. You know, we got SS Normandy, we got RMS Queen Mary. They're going to build the Queen Elizabeth. They're going to build the um, the RMS Mauritania 2 and all that kind of stuff. You know, there was no reason to look towards preserving the recent past when we've got so much to look towards the future. So that's one of those things where it's just kind of like, you know, the majority of people couldn't see the value in preserving an antiquated ocean liner like Olympic. And again, that's another reason why I say it's a miracle. It's a miracle that the Queen Mary is still around, because, you know, even in the 1970s, you know, because it was 1967 when Queen Mary retired, but it was 1969 when they really began working on the ship to convert it. And in 1969, people looked at, you know, Art Deco ocean liners as these, you know, old ships. They looked at them as like, oh, that's the ship my grandmother loved to sail on. You know, it's not a beautiful ship. That's old. You know, and 1970s was the worst decade. They really didn't appreciate anything antiquated back then. In the 1970s, they would bulldoze beautiful, beautiful buildings by the dozens. I mean, you want to know when we lost most of our Edwardian Art Deco and streamlined buildings, we lost the vast majority of them in the 1970s, because the people in the 1970s could not appreciate that kind of architecture, that kind of style. And even the colors, they started changing the color palette. You know, look at 1970s full of earth tone colors, because they couldn't stand vibrant, you know, beautiful colors. They had to have earth tones. So it's like the 1970s was like one of the worst things to happen to modern style and architecture. Not even modern, historic style and architecture. They just, got rid of a lot of it. And then that mindset never quite left. I mean, for the most part, you look at modern architecture today and how it's all gray and bland and stuff. You can thank the 1970s for that, because that introduced the idea of the 1970s introduced, well, I guess also the 1960s, introduced the idea of minimalism when it came to architecture. They were like, how can you create an architectural style that is beautiful, but requires the least amount of decoration. And so that's when you get into the space age design and all that kind of stuff. The 1970s carried over that space age design, did a few more things with it, and as a result, you start losing the appreciation for detail. You want to know why there's no longer beautiful decorations like this in the corners of bedrooms and stuff like that. You can thank the 1960s and 1970s, because they were like, hey, we don't need that. What if we just make a beautifully curved corner to the room and call it space age, minimalism. So, sorry, I'm trying to find the right aspect ratio I was just in. What is that? Huh. Never noticed that before. So yeah, that's my little rant about the 1970s. That's why I really don't like it. Just so many atrocities were committed in the 1970s in the name of progress. Nice little first class room. It's getting really warm in my bedroom. I feel like I'm baking in this heat. This is also why I don't do tea times this time of year. It gets so warm. I don't like drinking hot tea when it gets warm. And I don't like drinking cold tea, so... do you think the Aquitania should have been preserved, though? I'm not trying to ask the same question, but they were definitely able to in the late 1940s. Well, again, able and willing are two different things. Were they able to in the 1940s? Absolutely. But were they willing to? No, because again, there were still tons of ocean liners around. Aquitania was replaced by modern ocean liners. I can't remember them all. I'm sure. There's plenty of ocean liners that came out in the year 1950, for instance. And Aquitania, I think, retired in 1949 or 1950. I don't remember off the top of my head, but and Queen Mary was being restored in 1947 to be a little bit more modern. And SS United States was coming out in 1952. So there was a lot to look forward to when it came to ocean liners. So a ship like Aquitania, again, was looked at as grandmother's ship, like, oh, that's something grandma would have appreciated. But people of the 1950s, they couldn't appreciate it. It was too soon. It's one thing when we think about a Victorian house, for instance, or heck, not even Victorian. Let's look at Edwardian, right? Look at a house built in 1912, 1915, whatever. Look at a house built at that time. And today we'd go, oh, this is a beautiful gem. We got to preserve this, because most of us, except those of us who are on the older spectrum, might have memories of the grandparents who built or even just lived in those kinds of homes. We know those grandparents that had that love for where they lived. But then the younger people, probably my age and younger, we don't know any of those people anymore. Like I was lucky to grow up with my great grandmother, but she was born in 1915. Is that right? No. When was she born? I'm trying to think. She got married in 1935. Yeah. Yeah, she got married in 1935. Yeah, she was 20 years old. So, yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, sorry, I really had to think about that. I'm like, can't do math in my head. She was born 1915. Uh, you know, she if she had lived in one of those beautiful antiquated homes, those beautiful I say antiquated, antique, one of those beautiful antique homes, and if she had still owned it or something, I would have been like, oh, this would have been great. But but when it's a more recent place, like, I guess the best example would be for me, like, if if there was a home from the 1970s, for instance, I wouldn't have any appreciation for it. In fact, I lived in an apartment building that was last updated in the 1970s at one point, and I was like, this is so ugly. I can't even, I mean, even my rant about the 1970s a few minutes ago, look at how I view the 1970s. I view the 1970s as antiquated. I view the 1970s as they don't know style. And people in the 1950s would have felt that way about the Edwardian era. They would have been like, oh, look how overdone and antiquated this is. They don't understand the beauty of simplicity. So it's those kind of things. It's like there's always that period just a few decades before us that we're just like, oh, we don't like that. I mean, I think any one of us can say, oh, this specific decade, don't like it, right? Or I don't like the architecture from that decade. And so there was just a lot of that sentiment in the 1950s as well. And so, that's just the thing, is like, I understand how it's hard for them to imagine destroying such beautiful ships like Olympic and Aquitania. But really, it comes down to how people thought of ocean liners at that time. And they were just like, you know what? There's a new ocean liner coming out. But today, we look at ocean liners and we go, there's no guarantee that an ocean liner is going to replace the Queen Mary 2 when it retires. There's no guarantee. So we have more of an appreciation for ocean liners now. We're like, dude, we appreciate them because they don't exist anymore. And so yeah, that's just kind of the thing about that mentality, is like when there's tons and tons of something around, you don't appreciate it. Look at American cop cars from the 1990s, or even the 1980s. I think the Crown Victorias, the Crown Vics. When I was a kid, there was no nostalgia for that kind of car because they were still around. There was tons of them. They were everywhere. And now I'm finding YouTube channels where people purchase Crown Vics, whether they're cop cars or just regular citizen cars. People will purchase Crown Vics and have YouTube channels about them, because now they're a car that's not produced anymore. Now there's a sense that these things have now become endangered. They're appreciated now because they're no longer around. So it's the same thing with ocean liners, honestly. But yeah, actually, there are some pretty cool YouTube channels. There's a YouTube channel where somebody in the UK purchased a Crown Vic police car from I think it was vintage 2009 or something. But nevertheless, they keep it, and they have it look as it originally looked as a police car, and they use it for, like, they have a business where they escort people to proms, or they do like birthday parties and stuff, and they bring the car, and that's the business that they run now. But people go crazy because they're like, oh my gosh, these are the police cars that we see in Hollywood movies from the 1990s and the early 2000s and stuff like that. So I just think it's so interesting to see that, because when I was a kid, those Crown Vic cop cars were everywhere. There were a dime a dozen. Like, there was no reason to think of them as valuable in any way, or even nostalgic. So, but now I look back on it and I'm like, oh man, those old Crown Vic police cars were so beautiful now. I would have never thought that 10 years ago. I would have been like, Crown Vic police car, that's not a beautiful car. But now I'm like, oh, it is beautiful. It's amazing. Weird rant, I know. Julie says, you are correct about the 1970s. The 50s and 60s saw a lot of destruction of older architecture. Yeah, that's true. You know, every decade, I think, because I have a habit of over, what's the word? I don't know. I have a habit of going overboard and being like, this decade did this thing and this decade did that thing. And the truth is that every decade has its faults. Um, but I guess I have a bias against the 1970s. I just don't like anything about the 1970s. Oddly enough, though, I am a big fan of Disneyland, and the best decade of Disneyland's life so far was the 1970s, which is the irony of it, because I don't even like the 1970s, but I have to admit, if there was ever a time you could take a time machine and go back to Disneyland, one of the best decades you could ever visit is the 1970s. It's just funny. But yeah. What time is it? Okay, so we've been doing this for an hour and a half. Why don't we go up to the top level there and get a good view of the dome? Oh, and the Cafe Parisien is here. Why don't I give you guys a view of that real quick while I check comments? Five Capstone says, Alex, would you think of, I think it's called the MV, I think it's MV Britannic or something like that. Would you, I think you mean what would I think of the MV Britannic, which I think was the, no, yeah, MV Britannic. That was a ship they did complete, right? Wasn't it? The MV Britannic from the 1920s or 1930s, or let me look it up. Yeah, 1920s. Okay, so 1929 MV Britannic ocean liner. I actually know nothing about this ship. I know its name and I knew it existed, but I know nothing about the MV Britannic. I will say, though, that I'm not a big fan of ocean liners that are motor vessels. I like steamships. I'm all about steam. I mean, that goes with anything, honestly. Trains or even automobiles. I'm not a big automobile fan, but if you show me a Stanley steamer, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love anything that runs on steam power, basically. So I mean, this kind of ship, it doesn't really do much for me. Here's a picture of the inside. Oh, well, you know, it looks nice on the inside, actually. I'm looking at one of the, it looks like a lounge of some kind. But it looks nice on the inside, actually. I really like that design. It's like Art Deco meets Streamline. A lot like the Queen Mary, actually. Art Deco meets Streamline. It's beautiful on the inside, actually. And it looks like there's a little bit of Edwardian in there. Just a little bit. It's nice, actually. Yeah. If I didn't see the pictures of the insides, I would have thought by the outside it would have been ugly. But the insides look really nice, actually. So I will admit that. Wait, what happened to my... Oh, there we go. Okay. 1935, 1 year before the Queen Mary first travel, the 22nd of May, 1936 at 12 a.m. Huh? Evan says, did you see the photo that scares you yet? I haven't seen it yet. I was actually about to travel up to that level. Evan's talking about, there's a painting up here somewhere that every time I see it, from a distance, it looks like there's a person standing there. Is it here? No, it must be at the bow of the ship, or closer to the bow. There's another staircase up there. I think to get there, I would have to go... Well, here's the... Oh, I thought this was the way out to the promenade. Well, anyway, this is Molly Brown's cabin, the unsinkable Molly Brown, a wonderful person who had such a big heart and tried to help people. I have such huge respect for Molly Brown. And then you got Father Brown, isn't it? I didn't even think about that. They have the no, wait, no. This is this is Andrews. What's his name? His first name is, I can't remember his first name. His last name is Andrews. He's the engineer of the Titanic. That's his cabin. And then there's a smoking room. Maybe we'll take a quick peek in there. I love the smoking room. It's very beautiful. I mean, who would have thought that I would think that red and blue for floors was nice? But there is something about it with the green chairs and the wood paneling and the white ceiling. Somehow it goes with everything. The floors. It all makes sense. It goes with each other. And there's no explanation for it. It's like there should be no reason why the floor looks so nice with the rest of the interiors. But it does. That's insane how it just goes together. So, let's see here. Oh, nope. Arnaud says 1970 is also the hotel conversion, and when they gutted most of the original room of the ship, we can't blame them because it was the first time they did that to a ship. But yeah, it sucks a bit. I agree. Brian says some good references to learn more about MV Britannica's White Star by Roy Anderson and the Ismay line by Wilton J. Oldham. Five Caps Film says Thomas. Yes, Thomas Andrews. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, that's his name. Thomas Andrews was the chief engineer of Titanic. I almost said Queen Mary. Queen Mary's chief engineer was a man named John Brown. No relation to the company, John Brown and Company, that built the ship. It just happened that the chief engineer happened to share the same name as the founder of the company he worked for. Denny says, Mike from Oceanliner Designs was talking on a podcast and said that he would like to see a TV series about the Titanic, something along the lines of following the crew and passengers around. Thoughts? Well, firstly, that would be interesting. I would like to see that. I think I would watch it, definitely. But secondly, the funny thing about that comment is that's an idea I had for the Queen Mary. I've been talking for years about, like, I wish there was a TV show that was a lot like, you guys have seen Downton Abbey, right? That's a show that is kind of one of those guilty pleasures for me because I like that show, but I don't feel proud of liking that show. It's a very gossipy show. It's very much like just a bunch of characters gossiping about each other and doing questionable things, and but there's something about Downton Abbey that I'm like, this show is so interesting. I love it, and then I watch the movies. Every time they come out with a Downton Abbey movie, I watch it. Except I haven't seen the most recent Downton Abbey movie, but I will eventually. Yeah, so I would love to see something like Downton Abbey for Titanic and for Queen Mary, especially Queen Mary, because Queen Mary really needs, like, okay, Titanic, it has the movie Titanic, like, yes, there are tons of Titanic movies like A Night to Remember and all that, Raising the Titanic, all that kind of stuff. But the most famous movie that really brings attention to the Titanic is James Cameron's Titanic. Queen Mary needs a movie that will bring people to the Queen Mary. Yes, there is the 1970s Poseidon Adventure movie. It's a wonderful movie. I love the Poseidon Adventure. But not a lot of people do. My dad doesn't like the Poseidon Adventure. And And there's a lot of people that just don't care about the Poseidon Adventure because you have to be. I don't know. It's one of those movies that just doesn't speak to everybody. Um, so I would like to see a type of show or movie that can show off the Queen Mary's history without focusing so much on the ghosts. Because yeah, there's been plenty of ghost movies that have been filmed aboard the Queen Mary or about the Queen Mary. Um, Especially the most recent movie was called The Haunting of Queen Mary or something like that. I forget. And that movie, I don't like that movie. I feel like it was such a mockery of the ship. Honestly, I know that in interviews the director said that he made it out of love. He was like, "Oh, I love the Queen Mary and its history, and so I wanted this movie to respect that." I didn't feel that respect watching the movie. The movie, in fact, felt more like it was trying to make fun of the Queen Mary and relegate the Queen Mary to being nothing more than a scary haunted ship. And I don't like that. So I didn't like that movie. Um, but I would like to see something along the lines of Downton Abbey because there are a lot of stories about the Queen Mary that never get told. There's interesting people. If you watched my recent Titanic Queen Mary video that I put out just a couple weeks ago, I talked about a few different crew that worked aboard the Queen Mary. One of them was a man who was a crew member of Titanic. Charlie Andrews was his name, and he was a if I remember off the top of my head, he was a deck steward aboard Titanic at the time of its sinking. He helped pass out life jackets and helped people into lifeboats, and he remained on the ship as the water came up and the ship sunk beneath the waters of the Atlantic. He kind of floated away with one of the life jackets. And he survived because he was pulled into one of the lifeboats or something like that. And so Charlie Andrews ended up working at working for Cunard Line and working inside the Queen Mary. He became one of the swimming instructors aboard the Queen Mary. And so I think he was there for just the first year of Queen Mary's. I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. He was there for the Queen Mary's, I think, first year. I don't know if he stayed any longer than that, but if he did, that would be cool. But nevertheless, there are tons of people with stories like his that it would make for a very good TV show. I mean, can you imagine all these characters and these people over the years and amazing stories like, actress Frances Day on the maiden voyage brought her own chickens from home because even though the ship was filled with 50,000 fresh eggs that were loaded on in Southampton, she still insisted on having eggs from her own chickens. So the chickens were placed in the dog kennels. There's a special dog kennels room on the top deck of the Queen Mary. And her chickens were kept there. And every day they served Frances Day with eggs from her own chickens. And so, there's just quirky stories all over and quirky people, and it would make for a really good TV show. And I would love to see something like that for Queen Mary. I feel like it would bring a lot of positive attention for the ship because it wouldn't be all about ghosts. It would bring people in who could appreciate the history and stories. I almost wish I could make a show myself for that, just so that way, I could help the ship in some way. But I'm no TV show maker. I don't know the first thing about making TV shows. I did make a short film about the Queen Mary. It's on my channel. You can watch it. It's called Alone at Sea. And it stars my friend Shiloh, and he plays a character named Felix. And you can, in that movie, you can experience the Queen Mary kind of like she was in the 1940s and 1950s. And so it's a good, I think it's a good video. Not many people watched it though. It's the weirdest thing. Like, nobody knew I posted it. I don't know how, but nobody knew I posted it. So they never watched it. And then I went and tried to like advertise it on YouTube. So it was the only video I've ever like paid to advertise. And so I paid like, I think like $30 or something like that. And YouTube went and tried to advertise it on YouTube, but it was advertising it to people who have no business watching an ocean liner video. They advertised it to those random people. And so those people like clicked on it, but then watched like 1 second of it before they realized it was about a ship. And then they like clicked away. So the video has like 18,000 views, but I would say about 15,000 of those 18,000 views are people who clicked on it and then left within the first minute. So it really doesn't technically have that good of views, but if you guys would like to see that video, I highly recommend it because I think it's good and it's an artistic video and you get to experience the Queen Mary like we haven't seen in ages, and I think it's a wonderful video, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. Okay, so what time is it now? It's 3:50. I think I'm going to end the live stream because we've been walking around this ship for quite a while. Oh, I was going to go up to the top of this area. Gets kind of laggy in the staircases because there's a lot of detail in the staircase areas. Where is that painting? Maybe it's up here. Because there's a painting that scares the bejesus out of me, and I think it's up here. Yep, there it is. So let me get to the other side of the staircase. That's usually, or no, it's actually right here. Yeah. Usually like when I'm standing right here and I'm showing off this room to people, there's something about that painting. I don't know. It's like, hold on, let me move the camera up because, there we go. That big tree on the left, there's something about it and like the rocks beneath it that make it look like it's a person from a distance. And so often when I'm like talking about this room and stuff, I'll be like jabbering on and on about the room. And then all of a sudden I see that and I feel like there's a person there and it always scares the bejesus out of me. So, yeah, I love this room. It's beautiful. All right. But yeah, I think I'm going to end the stream because we've been on for quite a while. Yeah, Titanic 666 was filmed aboard Queen Mary. Did the Queen Mary add a laundry on board? Where would it be? Queen Mary had a laundry from the beginning, and they did a few services for passengers, but they didn't necessarily do all services for passengers. So you couldn't, I don't think you could just hand the cabin steward all your dirty clothes and they would do it for you. I don't think that's how it worked. I think they could dry clean and press your suits and your fancy dresses, but I don't think they did just anything. I think it was just only the fancy suits and dresses. But nevertheless, the laundry was aboard the Queen Mary. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what deck or where it was on the ship. I literally can't, because I never really talk about that area of the ship, so I don't have it memorized, but it is on board. There is a laundry on board, and mostly it did work for the crew. So mostly they did crew stuff, and then they also did the sheets and towels for the hotel rooms and stuff like that. Most of the sheets and towels were actually just placed in linen bags, and because they carried so many sheets and towels aboard the ship that that they didn't really need to do the laundry aboard the ship. In fact, the laundry room was very small, again, mostly dedicated to crew. I think the only laundry they did do was tablecloths for the most part, because they could only take on so many tablecloths aboard the ship. And the tablecloths would get dirty but not so bad. And they just took them to the laundry to get them done. So, but they could pretty much clean anything. It's just that they carried so many linens and things aboard the ship that they really didn't need the laundry to do all the work, and certainly not for passengers. Passengers would just carry their dirty clothes off the ship and to their hotel or something. So, or their home if they were going home. Queen's Cross podcast could be the TV show Diffuse on board the Queen Mary. It would be an honor to talk about the Queen Mary on a show on board her as the guest or to the guest. It's not the same thing though. We're talking about like a drama show versus a podcast. It's two very different things. I don't think the podcast will be that popular. Right now we're lucky if we get 3,000 views on the podcast. I mean, that's a good podcast if we get 3,000 views. But it will never be popular enough to help the Queen Mary. But But if there was a drama show that was popular, that would help the Queen Mary, because a drama show could get millions of viewers. So it has the potential for millions of viewers. That's the big deal there. So yeah, I think a drama show would help the Queen Mary. Julie says, I watched your movie. It was great. Oh, thanks. Yeah, we worked really hard on that. We worked really, really hard on that. Arnaud says, I hope the Lost Places series will come back. It will. It'll come back on the podcast. So we'll talk about Lost Places on the podcast. It won't be every episode, but it will be basically every other episode. We'll talk about Lost Places. And so yeah, we plan to do that for the Queen Mary. And then we have a few other topics planned as an ongoing series aboard the podcast. So, yeah, stay tuned for the Queen's Cross podcast. Thank you, Brian, for watching. Bladio says, Alex, I watched your Tumble Rock Canyon Railroad, and I wonder if you still have the layout. I still have the layout, but I haven't been able to work on it. I've been so busy with my channel and with other projects and stuff. I just literally haven't had any time to work on it. But yes, I still have it up. And I don't plan to get rid of it because it cost a lot of money to build it. I think I've probably spent close to $2,000 on that layout. There's no way I'm getting rid of it. No way. I've spent too much money on it now. Five Cap someone says, Alex, what are your thoughts on RMS Berengaria? I don't know enough about the Berengaria to render any kind of opinion. I haven't even seen the interiors. Okay, folks, I'm gonna get going because I am baking. It's getting hotter and hotter in this room by the minute, and I'm sweating, and it's getting so hot. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. I will be going to the Queen Mary in about a month or so. And I will be filming tons and tons of new content at the Queen Mary. And also upcoming will be, one of the things I'm going to film at the Queen Mary is an all new tour video, because the last tour video I did of the Queen Mary was in 2024. So an all new tour video of the Queen Mary will be coming out. It'll feature all the newest stuff that's been restored aboard the ship since the last 2 years, including the long gallery. I'm going to try to get footage of the long gallery. So I'm going to try to do that. And film stuff for updates and things like that, as well as just regular informative content and stuff. So it'll be really neat. I'm really looking forward to it. And then later this year, I am going on my trip to the UK aboard the Queen Mary 2. So I've got 2 voyages aboard the Queen Mary 2. My dad's coming with me. We're going to be filming a lot of content in the UK, as well as a lot of mostly vlogs and stuff like that, just experiencing history. And you'll get to see tours of the Queen Mary 2, because I'll walk around the Queen Mary 2 and take video of that. All that's happening later this year. But the most recent thing that's happening is my trip to the Queen Mary and to Disneyland. And when we go on the European trip, we're going to be going to Disneyland Paris as well. We'll be meeting a bunch of my friends at Disneyland Paris. So lots of cool stuff is happening. this year is going to be a big year for my YouTube channel. And of course, in August, my channel turns 10 years old. So there will be a special video about the history of Alex the Historian. I don't know if anybody's really interested in that, but I'm making it nevertheless. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me. If you want to support my channel in any way, you can find me on Venmo at Alex a Historian, or you can put a super thanks in the chat or in the comment sections of any of my videos. I really appreciate the help, because it really helps me to pay my bills and to do the things I need to do to make more content, because really this is the passion of my life, is making content for you guys, making information about history, and providing that kind of stories and stuff like that for you guys. So it really fulfills me. As much as I complain about it at times, I would still choose this job over any other job I've had my whole life. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time.